By now, we've all seen the pictures. Caitlyn Clark has spent her offseason in the gym, and it shows. Anyone attending an Indiana Fever game this year is basically getting complimentary tickets to the gun show. Even WNBA legend Cheryl Swoops, who once seemed reluctant to praise Clark, has remarked on how much stronger Caitlyn got in the offseason. And fans? They're absolutely buzzing about a healthy, rested Clark, one who didn't play in the new, unrivaled 3-on-3 league this winter, but instead stayed laser-focused on the WNBA season ahead. If the haters out there aren't already saying, uh-oh, they probably should be. You see, certain folks have been tearing Caitlyn down since she entered the league, but this year is going to be different. Those voices are about to be drowned out, potentially for good. And it's not only because of what's going to happen on the court. Stick around, because I'm about to show you why the haters aren't ready for what's coming. We haven't even begun to see the full Caitlyn Clark effect. But first, like this video for a Caitlyn MVP. Subscribe for a championship. Let's rewind to last season for a moment, because objectively, 2024 was the best year in WNBA history by many measures.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlyn Clark, University of Iowa.
The arrival of Caitlyn Clark had everything to do with that. On the court, she broke records left and right, and off the court, she drove record attendance and TV viewership for the league. The Fever went from near last in home attendance to leading the league with over 17,000 fans per game, the highest average in WNBA history. TV ratings for WNBA games skyrocketed. ESPN's broadcasts averaged 1.2 million viewers, up from 440,000 the year before, and the All-Star Game drew 3.44 million watchers. Those are numbers no one imagined for the WNBA just a year prior. And of course, this explosion of popularity centered largely around one name, Caitlyn Clark. It's no wonder then that jealousy began to percolate.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Plenty of sports leagues have had a transcendent superstar who becomes the face of the era.
Jordan with the drive and the reverse, Michael Jordan.
The NBA had Michael Jordan in the 90s, for example. In this WNBA era, that singular star is Caitlyn Clark. But here's the twist. The WNBA, as a community, has always prided itself on being about the collective. They hope to grow as a league together, not have one player dominate the headlines. Clark's instant supernova status kind of upended that ideal. The result? The league has been a bit torn. On one hand, everyone loves the surge in ticket sales and TV viewers she's brought. On the other, some figures in the WNBA have been resisting the idea that one player could be bigger than the league.
Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover and said the WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have? Because when you just keep singling out one player, it creates hard feelings. And so now you're starting to hear stories of racism within the WNBA, and I don't want to hear that.
We've seen subtle jabs at Caitlyn and her fans, little comments that suggest not everyone is comfortable with the spotlight she's hogging. You get the sense that this tension isn't going away easily. So, what are the haters actually saying? It basically boils down to two complaints. One, that Caitlyn's hype is driven by factors like race, the insinuation that a white player is getting attention that equally talented black players didn't get in the past. And two, that she isn't statistically better than the established WNBA stars, at least not yet, so all the fanfare is overblown. Now, let's address that second point, because by the end of last season, it rang pretty hollow. Caitlyn may have been a rookie, but she was already one of the top performers in the league. She averaged 19.2 points, 5.7 rebounds, and a WNBA best 8.4 assists per game. She led the entire league in assists and 3-pointers made. She was named Rookie of the Year and made all WNBA first team as a rookie. When MVP voting came around, she finished 4th, behind only A'ja Wilson, Nafisa Collier, and Breanna Stewart. In other words, she was objectively already a top 5, arguably top 3 player in the WNBA in her first year. Not the best ever yet, sure, but better than just about everyone except a handful of the league's absolute elite. Still, the goalposts for her critics keep moving. Until she actually wins a league MVP or wins a championship, some people will say pump the brakes, as if everything she did last year wasn't enough. And Caitlyn herself would probably agree that she has more to prove on the biggest stages. But here's the thing, that wait might not be very long. The way this offseason has gone, 2025 is shaping up to be the year those last arguments against her get blown to bits. Because if haters were uncomfortable with the attention Caitlyn got last season, just wait. Let's run down why this upcoming season is poised to turn the Caitlyn Clark show up to an 11 and leave the naysayers with nowhere to hide. First, she's rested, recharged, and even better. Last year, remember, Caitlyn had basically no break between her college heroics and the WNBA. She went from the 2024 NCAA title game, where she dragged Iowa to a massive championship matchup, straight into being the first overall WNBA draft pick and playing a full pro season. By the end of it, she'd played high-level basketball almost continuously for well over a year.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
This winter, she finally got a breather, and she made the most of it. In November, Caitlyn stunned a lot of people by declining a $1 million offer to play in the new unrivaled 3-on-3 league. This was a hyped off-season league launching in January, and the promoters were dying to have her as the marquee attraction. But she said, thanks, but no thanks. Instead, she opted to rest and train for the 2025 WNBA season. The Fever's front office had no objections. They left it 100% up to her, and Caitlyn decided her body needed recovery and preparation more than anything. That kind of decision is mature beyond her 23 years. It's a veteran move, and it appears to be paying off. Reports from training camp and her own social media show a stronger, faster Caitlyn. We already mentioned the muscles. Yes, she's visibly stronger, especially in her upper body. She hasn't had this kind of uninterrupted training block since at least 2023. Think about that. She dominated as a rookie without a pro-level offseason. Now she's had months to hone her game, get healthier, and add new weapons to her arsenal. A refreshed Caitlyn Clark is a scary sight for the rest of the league. And that brings us to the hype. If you thought it was crazy last year, buckle up. Because she sat out those off-season showcases, fans have been starving for her return to competitive play. The fever, no pun intended, for Fever basketball is at an all-time high before the season even tips off. Just look at what happened in Iowa City a few weeks ago. The Fever scheduled a preseason exhibition game at Caitlyn's alma mater, the University of Iowa, against the Brazilian national team. The moment tickets went on sale, there was a mad scramble. All 15,000 seats sold out in just 42 minutes for a preseason game. It's basically a victory lap homecoming for Caitlyn, and Hawkeye fans treated it like a Game 7 of the finals. The cheapest resale tickets were going for hundreds of dollars. We've simply never seen that for a WNBA preseason matchup. And it's not just Iowa. Across the WNBA, teams are literally reorganizing their operations to handle the Caitlyn Clark Roadshow coming to town. As of this spring, 6 different teams have moved one or more of their home games against Indiana to larger venues. Why? Because they anticipate their usual arenas can't hold the crowd that will want to see Caitlyn. For instance, the Las Vegas Aces typically play at a 12,000-seat arena. For the Fever's visit, they've switched to the 18,000-seat T-Mobile Arena. Atlanta's moving to State Farm Arena, 16,000-plus seats for the Fever's visit. Chicago is moving 2 games to the United Center, the Bulls Arena. Dallas is upgrading to the American Airlines Center for at least one Clark game. These teams aren't doing this on a hunch. They know the demand is there because they saw it last year and in the early ticket sales. Some teams have gone even further. The Minnesota Lynx caused an uproar among their fans by effectively walling off Caitlyn's game behind a paywall. They offered a half-season ticket package for around $850, which included tickets to every home game except the Indiana Fever matchup. If you, as a fan, wanted to see Caitlyn in Minneapolis, the only way was to buy that expensive package and then pay extra to add the Fever game to it. In other words, they knew that one game would be so hot that they leveraged it to sell a bunch of other tickets. Some fans were furious, but from a business standpoint, it kind of makes sense. That's the Caitlyn tax, and it's real. The bottom line, every arena Caitlyn Clark enters this season will be packed to the rafters, and a lot of them will be filled with as many or more of her fans as for the home team. The league has never had this kind of traveling spectacle before. Not on this scale. Even transcendent players like Diana Taurasi or Candace Parker didn't prompt multiple teams to change arenas to accommodate demand. This is uncharted territory, and it's all building a sense that something special is about to happen. And when fans show up, they're going to see a much improved Caitlyn and Fever team. Last year, let's face it, the Fever were not a great team on paper. They had a rookie head coach, a very young roster, and they were coming off years of struggle. Adding Caitlyn made them exciting, but nobody expected them to be contenders right away. And indeed, they finished 20-20, respectable, 6th place, made the playoffs, but not a top-tier team yet. This offseason, Indiana's front office clearly decided decided to go all in building around their new superstar. They made some major moves to improve the roster. It started with a coaching change. They parted ways with Coach Christy Sides and brought in Stephanie White as the new head coach. White is a known quantity. She actually coached the Fever in 2015 to 2016, even took them to the WNBA Finals in 2015. She's experienced and has a championship pedigree from her years as a player and coach. By all accounts, White was excited to return specifically because of Caitlyn's presence, and she knows what it takes to mold a title-caliber team. Then came free agency. The Fever went out and signed two former WNBA champions, forward DeWanna Bonner and forward Natasha Howard. Bonner is a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ known for her versatility and veteran leadership. Howard is a Defensive Player of the Year winner and a 3-time champ who brings toughness in the paint. Swoops, who knows a thing or two about winning, applauded these moves, highlighting Bonner as an OG who does it all, and Howard as another OG who adds defensive presence. These are battle-tested stars who immediately upgrade the Fever's starting lineup. Combine them with the young talent Indiana already had, Aaliyah Boston, the previous year's #1 overall pick, the rookie who was Rookie of the Year in 2023 before Caitlyn arrived. Boston made the All-Star team and has been developing into a dominant post player. Swoops noted that Boston continues to get better every single year. Then there's Kelsey Mitchell, a scoring machine who's been with the Fever for years and is one of the league's most underrated guards. She averaged approximately 19 PPG last season and is lethal from 3. Suddenly, you look at the Fever's projected starting 5, Clark, Mitchell, Bonner, Howard, Boston, and you realize, whoa, this team is stacked. It's not just a collection of names either. It's a roster that fits together well around Caitlyn. She now has 2 elite forwards who can finish inside and stretch the floor, a lights-out shooter in the backcourt with her, and a dominant center anchoring the paint. The depth improved too, as younger players slide into more appropriate bench roles. Simply put, the Fever are built to win, and win now. Importantly, it's clear that this is Caitlyn's team. She's the engine and the franchise centerpiece, and management is embracing that. They're giving her the supporting cast to shine even brighter. Last year, some critics said, well, she's putting up numbers on a mediocre team. This year, if the Fever become a top contender as many expect, that narrative goes out the window. Winning big, and possibly competing for a championship, will force a lot of doubters to finally give Caitlyn her due. And given the roster upgrades, an MVP trophy for Clark is not off the table either. If she leads this squad to a top record, she'll have as strong a case as anyone. And the records, they're about to fall yet again. We've talked about attendance, but we need to talk about viewership too, because the numbers here are staggering and only trending upward. Last year, whenever Caitlyn Clark was on national TV, ratings went through the roof. Sports Business Journal reported that nationally televised games featuring Caitlyn's Fever averaged 1.18 million viewers, compared to about 394,000 viewers for games without her. Yes, you heard that right. That's triple the audience, solely because of one player's presence. The Fever alone had 5 regular season games top 2 million viewers and 18 games over 1 million. In a league where a couple years ago, anything over 500,000 was rare. As Yahoo Sports put it, the Clark fans came for her and didn't leave. Many stuck around to watch other WNBA games too, boosting the overall viewership for the league. Her WNBA debut game in 2024 was the most watched WNBA opener ever, over 2 million viewers across platforms. The league's most watched game of the regular season? A Fever game on ABC that got about 2.1 million viewers. For comparison, those numbers are approaching what the NBA gets for some of its nationally televised games. The average NBA game on ESPN last year was approximately 1.56 million. Caitlyn was pulling in comparable figures as a rookie. When it came to the playoffs, she truly showed her drawing power. Her first playoff game against the Sun aired on a Sunday afternoon against NFL football and still drew 1.84 million viewers.
Clark trying to get around Mabry. Clark to the rim, reverses it home through the contact.
Game 2 of that series, on a weeknight, became the most watched WNBA game ever on cable, averaging 2.5 million and peaking at 3.4 million viewers. To put that in perspective, once the Fever were eliminated, the WNBA semifinals viewership dropped by more than half. Clearly, a huge chunk of the audience was tuning in specifically for Caitlyn and the excitement she brings. Now let's look to 2025. With even more hype, more national TV exposure, and potentially a deeper Indiana playoff run, every record is up for grabs. Could we see a regular season game hit 3 million viewers? It's not out of the question. If the Fever make the WNBA Finals, do we dare imagine a finals game averaging, say, 5 million? That would double the previous high, but it suddenly seems possible. Remember, Caitlyn drew nearly 19 million for a college title game in 2024. Even a fraction of that audience for a WNBA Finals would obliterate all expectations. The WNBA is already planning to put as many Fever games on big channels as they can, and other teams' games might benefit too, as new fans stick around. This is all building toward a transformational media moment for the league. It's the kind of surge in eyeballs that could lead to new TV deals, more sponsors, and more money, which we'll get to in a moment. For now, the key point is, Caitlyn is must-see TV, and everyone knows it. The disparity between interest in her games and others might even become a talking point in itself. Imagine if, on the same night, a Fever game draws 1.5 million on ESPN2, while two non-Clark teams on ESPN draw 500,000. It could happen regularly. The contrast will be stark, and it might be awkward for the league, but it's also undeniable proof of her impact. So let's recap this scenario. We have a fully healthy, locked-in Caitlyn Clark, who's likely to raise her game to another level. We have fan anticipation and media coverage at heights the WNBA has never seen, to the point of selling out arenas and breaking TV records. And we have a much stronger Fever team that could realistically contend for a title, meaning Caitlyn will be on the biggest stage with a real chance to win it all. For those who spent last year griping about too much Caitlyn, this sounds like their worst nightmare. If they were tired of her highlights on SportsCenter or her name trending on Twitter, well, in 2025, that's going to happen even more often. The spotlight on her is about to get even brighter. And here's the thing, that spotlight, by extension, shines on the WNBA as a whole. This is where the league and its constituents face a bit of a crossroads. Do they continue to push back against the Caitlyn show, or do they embrace it and let it raise everyone's profile? We've already seen some friction there. Atlanta Dream co-owner and former player Renee Montgomery made headlines by criticizing a faction of Clark's fan base, calling some of their behavior racist, sexist, and overly aggressive.
Say whatever you want, but if you start to have a racist tone to how you hate, that's when you got a problem. But I love a good fan that...
She was reacting to online interactions where a portion of fans were perhaps denigrating other players while propping up Caitlyn. Montgomery's point was basically, calm down, this is a league, not a one-woman show. Likewise, Mystics co-owner Sheila Johnson publicly questioned Caitlyn's individual accolades. When Clark was named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year for 2024, Johnson said,
We read Time Magazine where Caitlyn Clark was named Athlete of the Year. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover and said, the WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have?
She argued that singling out one player creates hard feelings, and that many players never got their due in the past. It's not a subtle comment. It's basically expressing that some in the WNBA feel uneasy about the Clark-centric narrative. These viewpoints are understandable to a degree. The WNBA has amazing athletes across all teams, and no one wants them to be ignored. But the reality is, star power drives sports leagues. It always has. Magic vs. Bird saved the NBA in the 1980s. Jordan took it global in the 90s. Now in the WNBA, Clark is that kind of star at a whole new magnitude. The upside of this for the league is enormous if they harness it. Just think about the collective bargaining agreement. If the league's revenue is spiking, players, including those same haters, could justifiably demand a bigger share of the pie. In other words, everyone in the WNBA stands to benefit from the Caitlyn Clark effect, whether they like how it's packaged or not. So, will the haters adapt? Early signs suggest some are already coming around. Cheryl Swoops, who last year was perceived as a Caitlyn skeptic, has recently flipped the script. In a March 2025 interview,
the team that I feel made the biggest moves, maybe even the best moves, that would be the Indiana Fever. I think the Indiana Fever went from just being in the playoffs last season to potentially winning a championship. They have put the pieces together in this offseason and I'm excited to see what they're going to do.
Swoops gush that Indiana's offseason moves might have made them a championship contender, explicitly listing all the pieces around Clark and complimenting Caitlyn's offseason work. When someone like Swoops, who has been critical of Caitlyn, says the Fever could win it all, that's a big endorsement. It also indicates that the success Caitlyn is driving is becoming impossible not to acknowledge, even for those initially resistant. If Caitlyn and the Fever indeed come out and dominate, winning a ton of games, potentially reaching the finals, it's going to validate all the hype. At that point, critics will have little left to harp on. Maybe they'll still mutter about how ESPN shows her highlights more. But if she's literally drawing 5 times the viewers, can you blame ESPN? The league will likely rally behind its superstar more publicly too, because hey, winning a title earns respect. In the meantime, though, the best way to convince the haters is to leave them no ammunition, and that's exactly what this season promises to do. All those "she hasn't won anything" folks could be eating crow if Clark ends 2025 holding a WNBA championship trophy or MVP award. What can they say then? The goalpost can't move forever. So here we are, on the cusp of the 2025 WNBA season, and it feels like we're about to witness something monumental. Caitlyn Clark isn't just a great player, she's forcing a whole league to level up in real time. The Caitlyn Clark effect means sellout crowds, record ratings, and a spotlight like never before. It also means some uncomfortable growth pangs for a league learning how to handle a singular superstar. But ready or not, it's happening. And personally, I suspect that by season's end, even the haters will have run out of steam. Because it's hard to keep hating when the person you doubted is shattering ceilings and lifting all boats in the process. They might not like that it's her specifically, but they will have to accept what she's doing. In a funny way, the haters' worst-case scenario is great for the WNBA. If they're grumbling because Caitlyn Clark took over everything, it likely means the Fever are in the finals. TV ratings are through the roof, and every sports outlet is talking about women's basketball. That's a problem the WNBA will gladly take. What do you think will happen this season? Will Caitlyn Clark meet the towering expectations and maybe even win the MVP or a championship? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.